Hello, this is Charles Severance, and sorry I can't be with you there in South Africa, and so I figured I'd record this quick little video, and hopefully afterwards we'll have some questions and answers via Skype. So I'm Charles Severance. I'm the current PMC chair. I'm a faculty member at the University of Michigan, and I do consulting as the Sakai Chief Strategist at Longsight. So I'll be talking about Longsight, I'll be talking about Michigan, and I'll be talking about IMS Global, and all those organizations pay me money, but in no way am I speaking for any of those organizations during this talk. So this past year, Sakai 10 was a great moment for us. At EDUCAUSE in the United States this past fall, we had a banner that cost over $10,000 to put up just to kind of celebrate a decade of Sakai and put us right up there with everybody else. You know, sort of a little marketing thing at EDUCAUSE, even though we're not really a marketing organization, but we put that up. So 10 years in, we have strong core values. We're open source, we have an open community, we now have open planning and roadmaps. We are not beholden to anyone. We have no employees as Sakai, we don't owe anybody, we don't have shareholders, we're not going to go public. People are making money with Sakai, and that's great, and we love that. But the Sakai core vector is driven only by those who are involved in the project and those who love the project and want the project to do well. We have a solid leadership team and have had now for 3 to 4 years of our PMC, Project Management Committee, under the Apereo structure. Has been a wonderful structure to be part of. And we have a great group of people who are our leadership. They are the contributors, and they're the people who, you know, on average, they've been with the project 8 or 9 years already. So if I look back over the past decade, you know, we have changed the learning management system market permanently. And perhaps we haven't changed it because of our brilliant Java coding or the fact that we do innovative things. Probably the most innovative thing we've done is connecting teaching and research and using the same tool for collaboration as well as teaching and learning. And literally no one else in the marketplace has done that. But if we look at teaching and learning in particular in the LMS market, what we have done is we have brought standards to this market. There is no question that without Sakai, there would be no standards in this marketplace. And you know, building blocks would be the closest thing the market had to a standard. And we founded basically all of the major learning management system standards that are making a difference right now, and standards are hot and doing very, very well. We are the first to deliver every one of the major IMS standards in the past decade. And like I said, we've been doing innovation. You know, Sakai 2.9, I think it was beautiful. I mean, Sakai 11 is more beautiful. You know, Sakai 10 was very much aimed at improving our production ability, our ability to be in the cloud, UI improvements that sort of been long waiting for resources to free up. That Sakai 2.9 was so important because of Lesson Builder. And once we had Lesson Builder, then a whole bunch of other things sort of flowed in Sakai 10. And Sakai 11 is sort of our chance to sort of take a new launch, right? We literally could live with Sakai 10 for a very long time. So this picture is really kind of a Gartner hype curve where the vertical axis is sort of how the market has seen us, and this yellow line, this is time, of course, to we're about right here in this graph. And this little dots are where we really have been relative to how the market has viewed us. And so if you go back to 2005, when we released 2004 and we released 1.0, we're about as much the darling of the market as we could be. This market loves the next big thing. Whatever the next thing is, that's the most important thing ever, and in 2004 we were that. The 1.0, 1.5 release were dismal pieces of software looking back, right? The 2.0 release, which we rewrote in early 2005, was a tremendous step forward, but it was still really broken and missing lots of functionality, and we sort of addressed a lot of those things in a series of every 6-month releases up through 2.5. 2.6 we moved to a once-a-year release, but at some point the world's view of us sort of started sinking, right? And then there was sort of the dark ages, and we were having our own problems internally during these dark ages where we were talking about Sakai 3 and disappointing the marketplace every year by not delivering anything. And so the 2.6, 2.7, to 8 were improving, but the problem is that they weren't Sakai 3 and the market wanted Sakai 3. And then 2.9 was sort of our back on track where we said, oh, finally we're an LMS. We're a as good as everybody else LMS. We have the kind of features that everybody wants in an LMS. And Sakai 10 is sort of like, okay, now let's take some advantage of the space that we've got from Sakai 2.9. The key to Sakai 11 is that it's improving, and it's supposed to add a bit of surprise and delight and get back to a notion where, we're doing something. How does that happen? Okay, so there we go. So Sakai 10, like I said, had a whole bunch of pent-up UI improvements that were really impressive. And in a sense, 2.9 was simply get the thing out the door with Lesson Builder. And then 2.10 was, oh, wow, there was a whole bunch of things that were kind of sitting and waiting while we were focusing on Lesson Builder with not enough resources, really. And so the Sakai 11 is the first version that we've had a roadmap. We met a year and a half ago and wrote down a roadmap. Historically, we haven't had one because we've had lots of people who, as soon as we'd write a roadmap down, they would come out of the woodwork and start chattering about the roadmap, and they don't represent resources, and they sort of distract those with resources. And so the people historically with resources didn't want to go on the record what they were going to do. But our governance now with the PMC for the past 3 years is solid and clear, and we know it's great for people to talk, and we know the difference between talk and leadership and control of resources. And so we're very good, and the commercial providers like Longsight and AsahiNet and others are very consistent in terms of their resources. They give us a person and a half or half-time person, whatever it is. They're much more consistent than universities that kind of don't want to commit to anything. So the big thing that Sakai 11 is to take a innovation step forward, get rid of iframes, move to a fully responsive design, get rid of the PDA portal, and that, as of a couple of weeks ago, is the default in trunk, and the only user interface that you're going to see is this responsive user interface. Now, we got a few months cleaning this up that we got to do, but it's there, and it works at this point well enough, and we'll just fix the little things that we find as we do developer QA and actual QA of this product. It's responsive, like all user interfaces should be, and we pulled all the tools forward. We eliminated iframes in the tools without changing the tools. We did it all with clever portal work. The other thing we're really starting to do is a big pattern that we have now is that schools will hire a commercial affiliate to achieve something and get it into trunk. And this is great. It's a great way for a school to get what they want. And now what we have is a way to bring people together around a project like an improving gradebook user interface or improving lessons user interface, and say, okay, here's a school that really wants this to happen, and here's a school that has 15K. But perhaps what we should do is turn that into 25K or 30K by having meetings and getting other people to contribute 5K here and there, and then get a little broader input. And so we've done this now. Two things that'll be in Sakai 11. Oh, there's a Freudian slip. Two things: the gradebook user interface and the lessons user interface. The pure graded assignments is already in there. We also moved our community to GitHub. This is an important symbolic gesture and a great way for us to improve our workflow. The key benefit to going to GitHub is the fact that far more people can contribute. With SVN, you had to get to know somebody to give them commit. At this point, people can submit patches and pull requests and get credit for those pull requests, even if we don't know who they are. We don't have to vet and validate. And here's a contributor that just woke up, one contributor, one contribution, made a patch, away we go. And we need to be able to develop new people and new schools and new people at existing schools who can now contribute to trunk with really very little barrier through the GitHub pull request mechanism. And it's really, really becoming exciting how fast we have moved to taking full advantage of GitHub capabilities. One of the questions that we have is, as some of the schools are the founding schools are reducing their commitment, one of the questions we have is, how are things, right? Was this project a project that the University of Michigan made? And the answer is, this has been an extremely diverse set of resources from the beginning. This is OLO, and you can see both the commits per month and the contributors per month. and they're going down a little bit, but really this is a mature product, right? This is not a product where we were in fierce development. And you'll see in the next slide, which I show you, which is the email participation, you really see two phases of this project. You see the phase of the project where universities like Michigan, Indiana, Stanford, and Cambridge were just putting tons of resources in. The community was growing, new people were showing up all the time, we had to bring new developers on, we had to bring new schools on, and so there's all this heavy chatter of the founding schools that were the only ones who knew anything about Sakai. And if you think of 05, 06, and even parts of 07, these early leading schools were the only source of truth. And now you see things like commercial companies like Longsight started in the halfway through, the Longsight trend is up, and the University of Michigan trend is down, Stanford trend is down, Indiana trend is down, and the commercial sort of random people off the street, many of which are Steve Swinsberg, but you also see that going up as well. So I think it's important to celebrate the folks who really accelerated us and put large amounts of code into our code base when we had none. That's something that our current, if we had no code right now and we're going to write an LMS from scratch and we said, okay, let's take the current contributors that we have, there would not be enough energy to write a new LMS, to write that first 1.2 million lines. And so these schools like Berkeley and Cambridge, Indiana, Stanford, and Michigan really, among others, wrote the core code, and that was costly. And it's fair for these schools at some point to say, you know what? We're going to slow down. We are not going to hire. At the peak, Michigan probably had 5 or 6 people full-time working on an open source project. And it's really not fair to say, well, your reward for giving millions of dollars of free software away is that you got to do that forever. The management of these schools can change their minds, can decide, you know, we've done that and it's great. And so I like to think of these folks as emeritus, not really gone, never forgotten, always thankful for their grand contributions. But one thing you'll see is that we've been losing leadership schools for a long time, and we've transitioned from each one of them. And each time we lose a leadership school, there is a plus and a minus from that. We certainly lose talent, lose skill, lose resources that those leadership schools brought. But we also gain flexibility, right? And so some of the acceleration of the user interface features are when a piece of code is dropped on the community and there's a whole bunch of patches that are waiting, those patches go in really fast, right? And these schools did not quit before they had sort of delivered what they've done. And so I also expect we're going to see some of these schools reemerge, working more on tools than on the learning management system. And as the learning management system tool ecosystem emerges, I think some of these folks will be right back at the table working with us all along, right? And of course, there's new leadership. Places like Rutgers, Oxford, Cape Town, Longsight, AsahiNet, Notre Dame, Duke, and Marist. These are our new leaders. New York University, I forgot about them. So, oops, that's what happens when you make a slide late at night. So we have plenty of leadership left and new leaders. And one thing you see is sort of like there's a space for leadership. An organization decides that they want to come in and take on a leadership position when perhaps 5 years ago they weren't in a leadership position. And so that's really quite exciting. So here's just one graph, okay? And so you may not have noticed it, but Samigo, our testing engine, was originally written by Stanford. And if you look now, there have been very few Stanford commits in it. And again, nothing against Stanford. They have the right to choose to relax a bit. But sometime in this period between 2012 and 2015, oh, by the way, this is a JIRA chart, and it's the cumulative number of new JIRAs and the cumulative number of solved JIRAs is the green and new JIRAs is the red. So it's going to always go up. What you're more interested in here is the slope of this. And so you look at the JIRA creation rate, which is the red line, and that's kind of pretty flat. And then you look at the JIRA fix rate, and that's pretty flat. Meaning that bugs were found or tasks were created, and sometime in this period, Stanford was no longer the lead committer. The lead committer is now Sam Ottenhoff from Longsight. So as of January 2015, all those commits on the far right are Sam Ottenhoff, and on January 2012, all those commits are Stanford. When was the transition? When did that happen? Can you look at that graph and tell me when we went from virtually 100% Stanford leadership to 100% Longsight leadership in this code base? And the answer is, it's kind of like the 6 months right in the middle. And if you look at it, there wasn't even a blip. And if you even see, you can kind of see that this a tiny effect of sort of some upward trends that after this transition, which kind of are catching up. And so this was fine. And the reason it worked was Sam had been working with Stanford for so long, coordinating, and then Stanford kind of started calming down and doing less and less, and then Sam just kind of picked up, and slowly but surely there was this very gentle replacement. So I've talked about Sakai 10, 11, and 12. One thing you're going to notice between 2, 9, 10, and 11 is we've extended how long we work on the product, because we want to put in some surprise and delight into these products. But it's a good time for us in Sakai 12 to dream even larger, to think about even bigger impacts that we might be able to do. Because 2.9 was a great product, 10 was an even better product, and 11 is going to be a great product. And then the question is, with a great product, you don't have to feel as panicked. So what might we dream about in Sakai 12? I think the key thing that we got to start thinking about is we got to think of beyond the LMS. We've got to think about an ecosystem of learning tools, learning management systems, all of these things working together. And Apereo is a great place for this to happen, because we've got sort of open analytics, we've got the portfolio project, we've got so many things that are happening inside of Apereo that really need to work with an LMS. And if we don't have an open LMS that allows these projects to grow and thrive in our environment, these projects won't be able to grow and thrive by themselves. And so I think our role as Sakai becomes a role of mentoring and supporting and helping and being involved in all of these new projects as they go forward. Okay, so thanks a lot, and we'll switch now, I hope, to the question and answer. Bye.